Throughout the long history of disability, the perception of disability has been greatly transformed. In the early 1900s, people with disabilities struggled with many stereotypes, stigmas, and experienced exclusion. There were few accessible buildings, little accessible housing. Children with disabilities were placed in separate, inferior schools. Public transportation was almost impossible to find, and many restrictions were placed on employment opportunities.
The U.S. experience for many was not considered to be a disability-friendly environment at this time. People were still focused on the socially constructed concept of normality and average humans, constantly focusing on the physiognomy or physical appearance of people.
However, several trends led to the most promising piece of legislation for those with disabilities and those who wanted to see positive changes for those with disabilities. The Americans with Disabilities Act, also known as the ADA. One trend in particular that helped spark this legislation was the rich history of federal laws pertaining to the civil rights movement, which was very much so present at this time and encouraged many people with disabilities to begin protesting for their equal rights. Throughout the late 1970s, people with disabilities participated in sit-ins at health, education, and welfare federal buildings throughout the country and demanded legislation.
Leading up to the ADA, the disability rights movement was being brought into the public light as a result of increasing pressure on the government to provide disabled World War II veterans with rehabilitation and vocational training. This push from veterans helped to set the standard for those with disabilities fighting for their own equal rights and benefits.
Once the ADA was enacted, people with disabilities were given more freedoms and opportunities than ever before. The ADA helped improve transportation, education, healthcare, telecommunications, information technology, integration, and the attitudes towards those with disabilities.
Following the ADA, many important Supreme Court cases emerged from legal developments. One case in particular is the case of Olmsted v. LC 1999. The plaintiffs, Lewis Curtis and Elaine Wilson, both sued the state of Georgia to prevent them from being inappropriately treated and housed in the institutional setting. In this case, the Supreme Court held that under the ADA, individuals with mental disabilities have the right to live in the community rather than in institutions. This is just one example of the positive effect that ADA had in protecting the rights of people living with disabilities.
In 2008, the Americans with Disabilities Act Amendments Act emphasized that the definition of disability should be construed in favor of broad coverage of individuals to the maximum extent permitted by the terms of the ADA. This was especially important in making it easier for an individual seeking protection under the ADA to establish that he or she has a disability within the meaning of the ADA. As a result of this act, several Supreme Court holdings were rejected, as well as portions of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's ADA regulations.
Although many improvements have been made throughout the history of disability, the stigma that lingers with disability seems inevitable. The following short clips are just a few examples shown to demonstrate how people with disabilities are still stereotyped and stigmatized in today's world.
Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Oh, maybe that's what I said. This is 14 years ago. They didn't do a retraction.
I would have never called him that if I knew. You don't call retarded people retards. It's bad taste. You call your friends retards when they're acting retarded.